the holidays are coming. There's taxes. There's all sorts of things that we are not familiar with. So she's just going to fill in those gaps for us and let us know what we really don't know. Because you go to these law offices and you never know if they're telling you something just to collect some extra income from you. So we're going to hear it from her today. She's a well-trusted person in the Austin and Central Texas area, also has an office here in Harker Heights. Welcome, Ms. Keiko.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Glad. We're so glad to have you. So tell us about the services that you offer when you say, you support families and in the midst of divorce with child support. How does that system work?
So any dysfunctional issue in a family and even some functional issues like the issues of adoption, conservatorship, guardianship, things of that sort come into play with family law, but the majority of family law cases are surrounding divorce and child custody issues where people are having disputes over how to raise their children, where they should be raised, who should be the primary parent, what visitation should be. That's most of my caseload. But then, of course, we have attorney general cases. A lot of our community is serviced by the attorney general if they are not in a position to afford a private attorney. So that brings issues of visitation and custody as well, and child support, of course. And then also I do step-parent adoption. So that's one of my favorite types of cases, making families whole with children who have absent mothers or fathers, and they have these mothers and fathers who are remarried and want to make their family whole. We do step-parent adoption, so that's a great thing. And then, of course, sometimes in families there are assaults and needs for things like protective orders, restraining orders, other protective measures that we do at our law office. And then simple things, power of attorneys to be able to make decisions for people that need help. Like sometimes you need a medical power of attorney because you're no longer able to be able to make decisions for yourself, or mental incapacities, or just physical weaknesses, and you need someone to sort of step in and make legal decisions for you. A lot of times family members will need a power of attorney, name changes. A lot of times people already have a court order and they want to enforce them, so they need to enforce orders because they're not being followed. And so some people come to me already with a court order, but they want the court to enforce it, to make something happen that's not happening that should be. So it's a lot of areas of child support, child abuse, CPS. Everyone's heard of that, right?
Right. And so with the step-parent adoptions, is that something that if a parent has say remarried and the other parent has just been absent and they can't get a hold of that parent, is there an automatic adoption, or does there have to be signature and a person there?
So in Texas, there has to be a termination of the rights of the parent that is either not present or for other reasons is not in their best interest to continue to be a parent. For instance, if they're abusive or neglectful, if they fail to support their children for a period of over a year, there are certain grounds where parents can be removed as parents, and that's called a termination of rights. So the biological parent would be terminated, and then the step-parent can step in as a petitioner to request to adopt the child between he or she and their spouse. So I have a lot of families that will come to me and say, my husband or my wife has been the parent for my child for a long time, and we just want to make that official, and we will have to go through the process of terminating the biological parent's right and then petitioning for an adoption. And you have to have a home study, and you have to prove to the court that it's in the child's best interest. But I've never had an adoption denied. So the courts want to integrate a step-parent as a parent when a child is lacking that. So, yes. And then speaking of child support, if for some reason the marriage breaks down and the parents don't stay together, that person that adopted the stepchild is responsible as a parent. So they sometimes end up paying child support if the marriage is broken, and asking for visitation or asking for custody of a child that isn't biologically theirs because they assume the role of the parent with all that comes with that, all the responsibilities. So child support crosses that area too. I was thinking what you said earlier, this being the holidays and Christmas, I have a few people that come to me and they want to know, well, with child support, if I'm paying child support, do I have any influence or any control over how this money is being spent? I'm giving child support, but the mother or the father is not spending the money on my child for Christmas. They're buying things for themselves. They're buying cars. They're paying for their dates or their family members' bills, and my child is going without. That's an issue that comes up in child support. And the myth in Texas is that as a paying parent, you have some control or some say over what happens with your child support. But in Texas, you have no control over how the parent spends the money that you're paying that should be spent for the child, you would think, right?
Right. I understand that, though. And so I like what you said about how you all go about with the step-parent adoption and how they go to some courses, some family courses first. So it's not just that people come into your office and they do whatever they want to do. You all actually advise them on what the best route is for them based upon your expertise.
Right. And courts love for people to take parenting courses, but it is actually a service. It's a home study that's done on the home and the family, and that person has to recommend that it's in the child's best interest that this adoption be granted. And so, and they do criminal background checks, and they go through a list of things to make sure this is what the child needs, and this is a person that should be connected forever to the child. So, yeah, it's a really beautiful thing. When those happen in court, that's one of the few times you see people smiling and taking pictures, crying, good tears,
A nice breakthrough. I can see why that's the favorite.
Yeah, exactly.
So during the course, if a parent is on child support, and is the child support able to be increased over the years because income and lifestyle changes over the course from when a baby is, just first born to being 18 years old? Or does it go to 21?
You're so right. Yeah, that's so true. And for the most part, child support is based on, in Texas, the amount of income the paying person brings in. So if that person makes the same amount of money when the child is 2 years old, their child support would be set. And then maybe when the child is 8 years old, they may have other needs. They may start t-ball and football and dance and ballet and have more expenses. But if that parent is making the same income, then the child support would be the same, because it's in Texas for one child, it's 20% of what someone makes after taxes. So in most cases, if you're making the same amount of money, even if the child's needs are changing, your child support will remain the same because your income is the same. But, of course, if your income changes, and that can be up or down, child support can be modified in Texas to be reduced or raised, Unlike other states, sometimes they will consider other factors like the income of the spouse or the parent that's actually raising the child, or the needs of the child are considered more heavily than in Texas courts, where they are pretty much consistent with applying a strict percentage to an income and giving you the calculation just based on that, which really frustrates people, because some people are paying child support for a child, and, the person that's raising the child might be making 6 or even 7 figures, and their income is not considered as a factor of determining how much the person should pay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And that's another question I was going to say. So because some people, when they say, about child support, they bring up their bills they have to pay. Is that something that they can bring in to reduce it, or do they maintain and stick with just what 20% is? Are they able to bring in their rent bills and say, oh, I have a rent, I pay this and that, so I shouldn't have to pay a lot for my child?
That comes up all of the time, and unfortunately for people that do have extended themselves with debt or bills or other obligations, the court is not inclined to reduce someone's child support based on their financial debts or liabilities. I heard specifically one judge say in child support court it was a father requesting the court to consider his truck note and some of his bills that were using a lot of his income, putting him in a harder position to pay. The judge said, tell me which one of these bills is more important than your child.
Because the child shouldn't have to adjust to your bills. I don't think.
Yeah, so a lot of people, they are sued for child support and they already have money allocated toward the lifestyle that they were living, and they maybe have a child, and now 20% of their income needs to be allocated toward the parent of the child, and sometimes it really does cause people to have to make significant changes in their financial obligations because, most people know that child support, if you're working, will come directly out of your pay before you get it, just like your taxes. So you have to adjust. Yeah,
and so do they automatically do blood testing, DNA testing?
No, they don't automatically do blood and DNA testing, but you have the right to request that, and it will be granted if you ask for that. So there are some presumptions of paternity in Texas. For instance, if you're married and you have a child, the husband is presumed to be the father. So if you don't ask for a DNA test, the court will assume because you're married, you're the father. So a lot of times if you represent, or if I'm representing someone, and they have any questions, then we have to file a motion to ask the court to grant DNA testing, and the court will do that. And I highly recommend people, or fathers in particular, ask for DNA testing, because once you agree in a court order that you're a parent, you can't come back in 5 or 10 years and say, I've been paying child support and I've been the father legally with rights and visitation, but now I'm questioning whether or not I should have done a DNA test 5 or 10 years ago, and it will be too late. So you always want to settle that issue first. Get your DNA test. If I had a son, I do have a son, if he came to me and said someone was pregnant, no matter how in love they were, I would say get a DNA test. If they were married, I probably wouldn't say that, but definitely for people who aren't married, just to confirm, just to make sure so that you're not in a position later, like some of my clients who have found out they weren't the father and they can't change the child support order.
And so sometimes when women come in, and I've been through this, where the parent that is not around has gone months, maybe even half a year without supporting their child. They're not in the system yet. And so, they give a little bit here and there, and that's something that I see a lot of women struggling with, or custodial parents struggling with, whether it's male or female, is, trying not to put the other parent on a strict regulation of child support, but the other parent will just give pennies every 2 months. And so when something like that is occurring, what advice do you give to them?
So the advice that I give most people, I give them a lot of times a little bit of my personal history with my daughter and her father, because I am divorced. I'm remarried. I've been remarried for 10 years, but I'm divorced. And I have a daughter with, of course, her father, and we have all of the orders in place for custody and child support. But I don't pursue the child support because he is very involved. He takes care of things for her when she needs things. He shares time with me. He helps me raise her, advise her, train her sports. He attends activities, and he's very helpful. And by co-parenting, in the co-parenting process, he ends up, of course, paying for things because he has her for food or for new spikes for track. Her hair appointment was on the day he had her. He'll pay for that. So I think it depends on the family dynamic. But if you have a father or a mother who maybe isn't contributing completely financially, but they're contributing their time or their resources, their presence, that matters to me. That's not the law, but that matters to me. And so if I have a person who comes to me about financial support and it's regarding a parent who is involved but not paying exactly, what would be sufficient, I let them know that sometimes when you go through the process of putting people on child support, it breaks down the relationship, and sometimes the strain or the conflict that comes from putting people on child support, sometimes it breaks down the parenting relationship. Not that it should, but sometimes that happens, and you have to be prepared for putting someone in a position to possibly, end up paying the correct amount because it will come out of their check, but maybe they will stop doing all that they were doing before you put them on child support, because that happens in some families. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so like that kind of sounds like my situation, except for just all out neglect. Nobody's calling, nobody's coming around. There's no money. There's air, and that's the situation for a lot of women when they just bounce, and then they call every 2 months or something like that. How you doing? But there's no money.
Right.
There's no picking nobody up. Nobody has seen you or anything like that. And trying to hang it, not contributing at all, and in denial about it. And a lot of times they'll try to make women feel bad, or the other person, like I said, I'm sorry because I'm female, for the men that are out there listening,
yes,
to make you feel bad about putting them on child support, as if, it's like, well, how can we miss something that's not there? It's not like you're doing all those things or anything. I think it would be wonderful to at least have some type of contribution or, like picking them up. But a lot of us, unfortunately, don't know anything about that. And unfortunately, some of them are in the military. We're talking about, I was a single parent in the military going through that.
Right.
So some young women who are, in the military, and they're already away from their families and in a new environment as it is, and now here you end up, on your own with a whole nother struggle in what's supposed to be a family environment.
So no, definitely in those situations, if someone is not helpful, is not contributing, and you put them on child support, then at least you're guaranteed that financial increase so that you can use that to, help support the things that your child needs at the time, since you don't really have any other support system flowing from that parent. But in Texas, the good thing about Texas is that Texas will have what's called retroactive child support. And so if you wait a few years to put someone on child support, but to file a motion to request child support be ordered, then the court will allow you to ask for up to 4 years back child support in addition to current child support going forward. So if you have a child that's 1, 2, 3, or 4, and you've never asked for child support and you decide you want to go, then when you file, the court will allow you to recover the previous 4 years of child support that was due to you. Now, if you wait 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, the court will still go back 4 years, but you would have waived all the years prior to that. So if you go at 10 and ask for child support, the court will add, child support for year 6, 7, 8, 9, and start with year 10 for future child support. So you can recover some of that money. But after 4 years, you know, you start losing the right to ask for the months or years that you failed to request it. So it's a good idea to decide, you know, I need to go ahead
early on.
Yeah.
And I would say look at their patterns, people, if, you know, they keep saying things like, I ain't got it right now, you know, they don't have it.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is what you come across, and, you know, or I have to pay this bill and that, and they're not really concerned about you having to pay the bill and support the child. Then I would, you know, I give people a little leeway about 2 months, and then I'm like, it looks like you're not going to, you know, you're taking advantage.
Right, right.
Or you need legal help, you know, the legal system needs to step in, and nobody really wants, you know, to have to go through that, but that's why you have people here, like, you know, the way that you work with people, you help them make a smooth transition with these types of things and educate them about it. So one thing I noticed about you is that you have a strong network within the legal system with other attorneys, which is very important in dealing with legal attorneys, people, because I'm telling you, you don't want someone just giving you what they learned from the school books. They need to have some kind of access, outside of the box type of education, creativity in order to see you through, because your situation may be different. And when you're dealing with folks who don't have that, it's hard for them to help you to the best potential that they could.
That's very true. And yes, it's very true. And a lot of clients, when they see that you're connected with other lawyers, they misconstrue that as something that would be negative. So when they see that you are friendly or professional with attorneys that are on the opposing side of the case or other attorneys in the courtroom, they perceive that as a hindrance to you being able to advocate for them zealously and represent them to your fullest potential. But it actually helps to have a working relationship with the other attorneys in the area, because you can, in many cases, settle things without going through the whole extent of the litigation process. You can settle things before a long, drawn-out trial, which, of course, is a lot more money. You can settle things before court because you have a professional relationship. You can call that attorney and say, you know, this is what's going on. This mother or this father hasn't paid anything in maybe a few pennies in 2 years. I need you to explain to them the law allows me to ask for back child support, and tell them it's 20% of their income. And the attorney, if you have a good relationship, sometimes they will help explain to their client what the law is, and because they have respect for you and they know that you will pursue that in court and be successful, because that's what the law says. And sometimes they can help you negotiate and settle conflicts more easily. But people think that if you're an attorney that you should be hostile toward other people and toward other attorneys, and that actually ends up being counterproductive 90% of the time. So it is helpful. It's also helpful to know the judges. So I was given my firm by the grace of God first, but because he put that in the heart of a judge who is now a judge. At the time she was an attorney, but she offered her practice to me, and then she became a judge in Bell County. And because of this relationship, just having worked with her in the courtroom and having known her and discussed case law with her and interacted with her, she ended up leaving me the law firm, and now I practice in front of her. And so when I have clients, I know her. I know her preferences, to an extent, not fully, but I can give them a lot more insight into what I think she might do, and that helps me counsel people or direct people and advise people before the trial. So it's very helpful to be friendly, to be professional, and to network, like you said.
That is really good. I'm so glad that you are here on this show today. I think this is one of the most really important discussions that we've had on this show. It's one of those life-changing topics. And if you all are listening, I'm going to have her information, also one of her videos. I'm going to post it onto my social media. I'm going to try to get it off of your website. Can you tell us what your website is and where we can find you on social media?
Sure. So on social media, it's at Keiko Griffin, Keiko Griffin, and my website is www.familylawtx.net. My phone number is 254-690-2202.
Okay. I'm writing that down now. www.familylawtx.net. That's
so
correct?
It's Family Law TX.
Okay. familylawtx.net.
Right.
Perfect. So everybody has that, and then you're going to get to see her on my social media. She's going to be on my Instagram, and she's going to be on my Facebook. And you all can go over there and listen back to this playback. And what I would advise for you all to do is, because there's going to be a short snippet on my Facebook page that's about 2 minutes. And inside of that, you'll have access to the full playback on YouTube. You can right-click on that and share it with your friends. You can copy and paste it and send it as a text message to your family members, whoever you know that's going through something that would need this valuable information. Maybe you need to sit down with your spouse if you're going through a divorce right now, or your husband if you all are planning on adopting a child together, or you need to, sit down if you are, alone as a single person, sit down with your leadership or mentor, whoever will assist you, and listen to this full playback so that you can take the nuggets and be able to, when you call her, you know where to go from there. That sounds good?
Absolutely. Yes, and be sure to mention this, and I will give you a free consultation. Just mention the show, mention Priscilla, and I will give you a free consultation.
Okay, so see now you better call now. You all have to call now. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Keiko Griffin, for being beautiful and being there for the families in Central Texas. This is a much-needed practice that you're doing. You're such a blessing, and we enjoyed you today for this great information. Rise, shine, and give God the glory. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Take care.